This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about primetime matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for 1 bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hello, Duke fans, and welcome to episode 504 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. 2 shows in a row that I'm hosting here, which means that the season must be over and things are off the rails for Duke basketball. I am your host, Sam Klein. I am coming to you from the mountains of Colorado, where I am skiing this week, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I have Jason Evans and Donald Wine here as well. Jason, how are you, sir?
Doing pretty good, man. I have to tell you something. I watched Sunday's NCAA tournament games a lot less than I have in recent years when Duke has still been around. I'm not saying I've given up on the tournament, not by a long stretch, but I am having trouble finding teams that I'm really rooting for. and my interest has, it's plunged. Let's just put it that way.
Donald Wine still has a team left in this tournament, right? So Donald, I think Miami. you still have rooting interest here.
Yes, Miami is in the Sweet 16, so that's good. I can continue to watch them. And also, hello, everybody. Reporting live from St. Vincent, which is an island very, very deep in the Caribbean. I've been here for a couple of days. I'm here on a soccer trip. We're not playing soccer on this island. I go to Grenada tomorrow, where the U.S. will be playing. So this is just the start of my week-long vacation.
Is St. Vincent one of those islands where there's no finance laws? Can you just get away with anything there?
No, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't have enough finances to worry about laws like that.
Yeah, it just feels like it's in the news. It's very topical. So
yeah,
you're not in Grand Cayman. I know that's
I am not in Grand Cayman. We're not having banks and cuckoo clocks.
So I had 2 interactions today that were Duke related that will lead us into the topics of the day. One of the things we're going to do today is recap the stats game, which is why I am hosting, and why things might get, sort of as loony as I decide they will be. The other thing, and this relates to the encounters I had today. So one thing that happened, I should say, I'm sure I've mentioned this before. When I ski, I wear a ski helmet that has a big Duke decal on it. So I'm very obvious. If you ever see a guy skiing who has a big Duke decal and a green jacket, and you come up to me and say hi, that'd be pretty cool. Don't ask. It's definitely me.
It's definitely not me.
I promise.
I know that.
So I made a point on Sunday when I was out and about of wearing my Duke baseball cap everywhere I went. And someone said to me, "Hey, wait, didn't you guys lose?" And I said, "The day after you lose is the day you're supposed to wear your gear. If you're not, you're a fair-weathered fan, and I'm not a fair-weathered fan." Wow. And that person looked at me and he was like, I could tell from his face that he was like, "That's a way more serious answer than I expected to get from that question."
So I had two interactions relative to my helmet today. One was a guy in an NC State beanie, and we looked at each other and we were like, we both like collectively said, we were like, "Well, at least you're not Carolina." We sort of had that moment. I didn't share with him my hatred of all other ACC schools. We just bonded over not Carolina. And then the other thing that happened, which is another topic we need to cover today, is that a guy in front of me in line turned around and said, was talking smack to me about the fact that his CU Buffaloes beat the Duke women last night in the NCAA tournament, which is what we are going to get to after the break. So that guy said that to me, and I was like, okay, man, like, have fun. Just get going. So anyway, we're gonna talk women's tournament after the break. Right now, we're doing the stats game. For those who may have joined us during like mid-season this year, who don't know or who need a refresher, one of the fun things we do here annually is we play the stats game, where at the beginning of the season, with no knowledge or very little knowledge, we predict all kinds of statistical categories related to Duke men's basketball and the ACC. And it's our way of previewing the team, because we feel like, throughout the offseason, we end up talking about, oh, these are the guys who are coming in and here's what they might do. But this is our way of sort of summarizing our preview for the season. And then as part of our season wrap up, which is what we're doing here, unfortunately this week and not 2 weeks from now, we recap the stats game. We award a winner. The winner gets a trophy that I've never bought, which a listener told us he was going to donate years ago, and I never followed through on it. Classic me. So, but I did tabulate the stats game, and I do have a champion. And so, guys, before we start, any guesses on who won this year?
Not me.
I was gonna say, I think Donald won. I had a bad year. I had a bad year, I think.
Let me tell you, this was a very competitive year. As I go through these categories, you may note that I have taken some liberty in assigning points because things were a little weird. So what I will do when we get to those categories is give you this, because you guys have not seen the results yet, and I presume that you haven't been looking at the stats game notebook recently, so you don't know what happened. Unless you went back and listened to it, which I know you also didn't do because you assured me that you did not. So you're not aware of what happened. And there are a couple categories where either I am lazy or it's sort of unclear how we would score it. So I will give you the outcome without the names associated, and we can collectively decide, because there are three of us. So it's easy to break ties here on this Supreme Court. Does that sound good? I think we've done this every year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a few that you're going to start that we're already like, yeah, that didn't turn out the way we planned. So
yeah,
go ahead.
But before I get started, any predictions on which categories we flubbed the most?
Well,
points.
Yeah, I was asking you guys just the other day, Kyle Filipowski led the team in points scored. I don't think that when we did the stats game, he would have been anyone's second, third, maybe not even anyone's fourth pick to lead the team in points scored. That's how bad we were in that category.
And I claimed that I might have had him like third or fourth because and I'll tell you why. And actually looking at the results, Donald and I both picked Filipowski to have the best 3-point percentage on the team. So
wrong.
Which, spoiler, we were wrong about. But to that end, we knew that he was going to score points because he was going to be taking enough shots like that. It's impossible to ask November me.
I am telling you, in the preseason, if we had to guess how many games Kyle Filipowski would start, I bet that the three of us would have collectively been under 15. Kyle Filipowski's emergence this year was the most surprising thing on the team. Period.
If I remember correctly, we did have a conversation about whether Kyle Filipowski or Mark Mitchell would start, right? We were kind of saying one of those two guys are going to start, the other one's going to come off the bench and may flip-flop between two. Turns out those are the two that until the very last game of the season, they started every game this year. So, again, we were wrong.
And right off the bat with our first category, which was points per game, we're going to address the one story that is like a through line on many of these categories that sort of changed the way that the outcomes went. which was we all said that Dariq Whitehead would lead the team in scoring. I guessed that he would score 13.3 points per game. Donald guessed that he would score 15.1, and Jason thought he would score 16.3 points per game. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that Dariq Whitehead averaged double figures this year. So that's a pretty tough look for all of us collectively. I am awarding no points for it because that's just that's bad, right? Can we all agree that like none of us deserve points for this? Whitehead was fifth on the team in points.
The collective wrong on who would lead the team in scoring was so massive that I heartily endorse your decision to award 0 points.
Exactly. I will say that Donald nailed the points per game of the person that would lead the team in scoring, but that was Kyle Filipowski. So in the spirit of the game, you're not getting a point for this.
That's fair.
Rebounds per game. We all guessed that it would be Derek Lively. Remember coming into the season how Derek Lively was going to grab every rebound? It turns out Kyle Filipowski grabbed every rebound. So here's the question. Because this one at least was like closer in the realm, are we awarding a point for the person who got closest in rebounds per game here, or should we skip this one too? Jason says no. Donald, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Let's skip it.
Okay, so no one's getting a point for this. Jason had the biggest number here, which was 7.2, and Flip averaged 8.9 rebounds per game. So I guess even in the spirit of the thing, like we didn't even get close. Donald said 6.2. I said 5.7 rebounds per game. I guess I didn't think that Duke was going to rebound this year, which
I think we talked about it being spread out amongst a lot of guys, and that, you know, a lot of guys would get 6, 7, 8 rebounds a game.
It turns out that Derek Lively was third in the team in rebounding behind Flip and Ryan Young.
Again, we were so collectively wrong. 0 points is a decision that should be made.
Totally fine. Guess what? Derek Lively led the team in blocks per game, and we all thought he was going to. Can we collectively just appreciate all of us for doing that? And Jason and Donald both got very close to the real number. Jason is going to get the point here because Jason guessed 2.3 blocks per game. Donald guessed 2.2. I said 1.9. Derek Lively averaged 2.4 blocks per game this season. And if we counted Jason's version of Derek Lively's blocks, I think he averaged 7.5, maybe. Yeah.
Hey, wait, you round down. You don't round up at 2.4. You round down. You don't round.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Were you a math major at Duke?
What did you? That's third grade math. You round down at 2.4. Right. 2.5. You round up.
All right. Well, Jason was closer, so Jason's getting the point here. I'm not allowing. I am the commissioner here, so I'm gonna overrule you on this one. I
strong objection, Your Honor.
So to be clear, I'm currently leading.
Yes, Jason is currently leading
with 1.
Right, stop the count. Stop the count.
It's November 7th. We have to keep counting the vote. All right, I'm done. Yeah. I'm not doing that. I'm not going.
We can't do this today.
Assists per game. Would you believe that we had a winner in this category? Tyrese Proctor led the team in assists per game, despite only leading the team in assists. And we're going to get to this in a later category, like 8 or 9 times this season. Because it turns out Kyle Filipowski was great at dishing out assists this year. So he took a lot of highest assist total on the team from Proctor and Roach, the two guys that we would have guessed. That was both me and Jason who guessed Jeremy Roach, and Donald guessed Tyrese Proctor.
Sweet.
Amazing. 3.3 assists per game. Roach averaged 3.1. So that was a pretty tight one right up until the end. 5th category. It's now one Jason.
Wait, that must mean that game where Proctor in the tournament, or was it tournament, or like AC's tournament, got like 11 assists.
Yeah,
that
was it. That's your whole victory.
Yeah, they probably put him over.
Steals per game. Do you guys know who led the team in steals this year? Per game. We didn't do this on a counting basis.
Per game.
But I imagine
it was Flip. I bet it was Flip.
Yeah, it was Kyle Filipowski, and he kind of ran away with it. He averaged 1.3 steals per game. Jeremy Roach came in second with 0.9. Both Jason and I guessed Roach, Donald guessed Roach. Jason and I both guessed. Do you know who we guessed, Jason?
Grandison.
We said that it was going to be Jacob Grandison.
Yeah.
He didn't come close. So no. I'm not awarding points for this one because Kyle Filipowski ran away with it, and I don't believe we mentioned that.
Do you remember how many games? How often we would be like, Hey, Flip had 4 steals this game. He had 5 steals. I'm not surprised that he led the team in steals.
I mean, it happened, and we talked looking back. Yes, of course. Looking ahead at the season, we had no idea,
right,
that this would happen. So that's amazing. Highest field goal percentage on the team. This one we also have a winner. 2 of us picked Ryan Young. That was me and Jason. So we're each getting a point for this one. Donald picked Lively as leading the team in points per game. We are not going to give. We're not going to take away the point because Christian Reeves technically led the team in field goal percentage because he didn't play enough games or minutes to qualify.
We had a what was it, a field goal per game like average or something to qualify. So
I've had a rule about this before. I don't know that I was counting specifically, but we know who was in the rotation and who was not. And Christian Reeves, unfortunately, this season was not in the rotation. So he may be next year. Wait and see. DBR podcast next year. By the way, speaking of next year, I mentioned at the end of the last episode that we had been doing this for 8 seasons. It's actually 9. Did you know that? No one caught
2014, 2015 was our first season.
That's right. This is our 9th year. Crazy. May I continue?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So Jason and I both get a point for that one. Highest 3-point field goal percentage. Donald and I both picked Filipowski. It's okay.
I picked Grandison.
Jacob picked Grandison. Jason got closer to the pin on this one because Grandison came in 6th on the team. Filipowski, unfortunately, was 8th on the team in 3-point field goal percentage. Dariq Whitehead led the team in 3-point field goal percentage. He hit 43% of his threes. I would love to know what he would have done in a full season. I think that what would Dariq Whitehead have done in a full season is like, does that come in 3rd place behind Kyrie and Zion? Like, is there anyone else?
It might. Yeah.
And maybe like Harry Giles.
Harry Giles. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, right? Like, he wasn't even on our radar for this because entering the season, he was not thought of as a 3-point shooter. He was thought of as a guy who's going to slash which we thought, hey, he's going to score a lot of points. He's going to get to the hole and score. He turned out to, because of that injury, he kind of, flipped it on his head, and now he's a 3-point shooter. Like that is, it's amazing how sometimes those things work.
And we were told that Derek Lively was going to shoot 3-pointers, and it turns out all he does is dunk.
I mean, did Lively hit 2 3-pointers in the year? I think
he hit 2.
Yeah.
You guys can check this while I read.
Yes, he was 2 of 13.
If like 3 more of those drop, he's a good 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
Three more of the 3rd. He was so close. He's just gotta commit. It's not enough volume to get good at it. He doesn't have the shot in his arm yet.
I think he had more air balls than made 3-pointers.
He had some cool dunks though.
Yes. Oh yeah.
We didn't have a category for where does Derek Lively end up on the all-time cool dunks, Duke dunks list, but he's in there with like Marvin Bagley and Zion Williamson, lots of cool, and Grant Hill, like cool dunks. Yeah. Big dunks guy. How many players are going to lead Duke in scoring in a game? Gentlemen, do you know how many people led Duke in scoring in a game this season?
8.
It was 8, right?
There were 8 of them, and I picked that. Donald had 6. Jason had 7. Jalen Blakes led the team in scoring this season against University of Maryland Eastern Shore. It does count as a game, so I've got that point. That's basically everybody in the rotation except for Jacob Grandison led the team in scoring this year. So pretty amazing. I think it speaks to Duke's depth, at least at points this year. It feels like John Shire cut the rotation down late in the season, but for a good chunk of the year, we talked about how cool is it that Duke's running 8, 9, 10 guys deep, right?
It was fun.
And then he just turned back into Coach K.
And then it stopped.
He became an old bullish pumpkin.
The thing was, we saw why it stopped. I mean, there was down the stretch as the games got more and more competitive and more important, it was abundantly clear why the 6 guys who were playing, for the most part, 6.5. Well, it was abundantly clear why those guys were playing more than everybody else.
Yeah. Interesting development throughout the season. And something that we are, I think, curious about long-term about John Shire when we think about what is his approach to minutes distribution. Is it the way things looked for the first 2/3 of the season or the way this looked when Duke was awesome at the end of the year?
Well, and it's going to be really interesting next year when maybe, we don't know for sure,
when everybody comes back.
when next year when Duke is all wings.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say no next flex. Year it really looks like Duke's gonna have even more depth than we had this year.
Duke is all wings next year. So this is my season preview. Duke is all wings. Guys, do you know how many minutes per game Derek Lively averaged this season?
28.
28.
No, it's nowhere near that high.
It's nowhere close.
Oh, it was lower.
20, I'm gonna say 21.
You're very close. It was 20.6 rounds to 21. And Jason, it's curious that you said that because you actually won the category. You guessed 23.6 points per game. Donald had 26 and I had 24. Now,
you said points per game. You mean minutes per game?
It's minutes per game.
Derek Lively did not average 26
he averaged 25 minutes per game or points per game, and all he did was dunk. It was nuts. Now, the interesting thing about this, of course, is that Lively was hurt for a chunk of the season early in the year. Took him time to come back. I will note particularly for Donald's saving grace here, that once Duke was fully healthy, since I cut this off somewhat arbitrarily at the loss to Virginia when Lively didn't play that many minutes, because I think he did get hurt in that game and had to sit. Since that game when Duke went on its great run and that finally ended against Tennessee, he averaged 27 points per game. So Donald was basically right once the team was rocking and rolling, but unfortunately that's not how the stats game works.
Yeah.
So, pat yourself on the back. Sure. Take a bow.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm patting myself on the back.
I love it. I'm really proud of you. Here's the next category. That's a sad one. How many times will Jeremy Roach have 5 assists in a game? One of us did get close. One of us did not. The person who did not was Jason. Jason said that Jeremy Roach would have 5 assists 18 times this season. He actually had 7.
Wow.
So, yeah, I had 11. I kind of split the middle. Donald guessed 6. So Donald's getting the point for this one. He was 1 off. And it turns out Donald knew that Tyrese Proctor was going to have assists this year. That's my big takeaway from this. Donald, how'd you know that?
So I'd like to thank my intuition. I'd like to thank the world of poker. And I'd also like to thank this one thing that everyone has in their bag. It's called educational guessing. I guess the hell out of these categories. I don't know.
Great. That's great. Jason, why'd you guess 18?
Well, because, there are like 3 or 4 things that happened this year that to me were really, really unexpected. And one of them was that Jeremy Roach wasn't our point guard. I thought that Jeremy Roach would be our point guard. Turned out Tyrese Proctor was our point guard. I thought Proctor was going to play off the ball, and I was just dead completely wrong about that.
And in your defense, we talked about this at length, and it was one of the things that we were trying to figure out going into the season, like what exactly is Tyrese Proctor's role on this team, given that Jeremy Roach is so ball dominant. So let's talk about Kyle Filipowski. This is another sad category, although one that one of us nailed, which is how many games is Kyle Filipowski going to have 4 threes at least? Now, Jason won this category because he guessed. Do you know, Jason, what your guess was?
That I either guessed 1 or 0.
It's 2. He had 2 games. I guessed 5. Donald guessed 4. And I do recall, check the tapes, I do recall that when we guessed this one, Jason started laughing at us because Donald and I, as noted, were super high on Kyle Filipowski shooting threes. And Jason was like, guys, nobody hits 4 threes in a game unless they're actually a good 3-point shooter.
And it made sense because I basically went with my other bet, which was that Flip was going to lead the team in 3-point percentage. So
exactly.
You need a few of those.
We did a very weird way of tabulating this category. What percentage of games would Tyrese Proctor lead the team in assists? I made you guys think about this one. So he did ultimately lead the team in assists per game. He only led the team in assists in like 25-ish% of the games. Jason had the low number here. He said 38%. So wow. I guess because Jason, you thought that Roach was the point guard. So you must have guessed a low number after Donald said 46 and I said 42%. So Donald's the one. I guess Donald has a consistent theme here, which is that Donald thought that Tyrese Proctor would become the point guard, and I didn't know what was going on. I just had no feel.
Neither did I, to be honest.
I think I was hedging, actually. I think I would describe this as hedging. The next category is one that I'm ultimately going to throw out because I wanted to do Jalen Blake's crunch time minutes, which we did track for a few weeks. He was at 5 through the Xavier game. I made this note on the thing, and then I stopped counting. And to be totally honest, this is really hard to track if you're not doing it week to week, because it requires going into the game log and checking all the substitutions. Jason guessed 1. Donald said 10. I guessed 13. No one's getting a point because I feel like Donald probably got closest, but it's possible that because I think he may have played in 1 or 2 more crunch time minutes after that. But given that this was too hard to track, I would like to throw it out.
I'm fine with that. I was actually going to say I think it may have been. I think the 13. I think that number might have been the right one.
And that's where I'm like, it's possible that it didn't happen again, because there was a point right around there when Jalen Blake's kind of fell out of the rotation around the time that Duke stopped playing competitive games for a while. That sort of late non-conference stretch. And then it's possible that he got a few more and I would have won it. It's possible that he got no more and Jason won it. And it's possible that he got 3 or 4 more and Donald won it. So we're throwing that one out. Great. Good job, team. If anyone wants to go back and count it, email us, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. That's the most useful thing you can do with the email address this week. Guys, how many times was Ryan Young going to score double figures this year?
Oh, wow. What did we guess? I want to know.
This is a good one.
Wait, what's the answer?
I think I went high.
The answer was probably
a great category.
4 or 5, right?
Jason guessed 8. I guessed 7. Donald had 11. The real answer was 10. So Donald's getting a point for this.
Wow.
I think we talked a lot about Ryan Young in the preseason, and I feel like we didn't quite capture what he would add to the team this year, even though we talked about him a lot, because he ended up having to play a much bigger role, I think, than we had anticipated, given
honestly
Lively's
when
injury.
I was thinking about it, I was like, look, you have to get to 10. That's all. You don't have to get to 30. You don't have to get to 20. You just have to get to 10 to get double figures. So I just
he did get to 20 once. That happened.
He did get to 20 once. He led the team in scoring one time, or at least once. But I think it was more about I figured there was going to be a lot of games where he would consistently get 8 to 10 points. And to his credit, that a lot of the times when he was starting in the beginning of the season, that's where he accumulated. It feels like he accumulated a lot of those points.
Yeah, he led the team in scoring multiple times. Only, I think, I need to double check this. I think that Lively and Blake's each led the team in scoring once. So they're the ones that got the closest to not doing it. But Young did it multiple times, at least according to the ESPN tracker of who's the high points. So not exact, but close enough. Mark Mitchell, minutes per game. This was a great category because going into the season, again, things we were, at least I'll speak for myself. You guys can correct me. Things we were totally unclear about. What was the status of Dariq Whitehead's injury? And 2, what role was Mark Mitchell going to play on the team? Jason, tell me, given that you won this category by guessing 23 and the real number was 27, what were you thinking about Mark Mitchell's role in the team coming into the year? Well, sorry, excuse me. Let me ask that as if I was a sideline reporter. Jason, what was your mindset guessing Mark Mitchell's minutes per game coming into the year?
I thought that teams always need a switchblade. That Mark Mitchell was a guy who could do a little bit of everything. So I figured he would always find a role for himself. But I will freely admit that I didn't think his role would be as large as it ended up being. And
part of that is due to injuries. And unfortunately, he didn't play in the last game, but otherwise he started every game that he was healthy for.
He had a really interesting year because early in the year he was great. Remember, he led the team in scoring in one of the first couple of games. He was really great early in the season, and then he hit this lull. And I started talking about, should he be starting? I was trashing on the dude, and then, man, did he pick it up down the stretch. Wow. His final 8 or 10 games, he may have arguably been Duke's, second best player his final 10 games. It's very possible.
There are a lot of guys whose NBA futures we are not going to debate today because that's not the point of this episode. But at the point when we do that soon, I feel like we need to have a whole conversation about Mark Mitchell's career, because I think there's a world where Mark Mitchell plays 3 games in the NBA, and there's also a world where Mark Mitchell becomes an NBA All-Star. That everyone is like, damn it, I wish I had Mark Mitchell on my team, right?
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Fantastic. Let's move on. Oh no, this is one of the worst categories. Guys, could you brace yourself? Do you want to know what it is? Dude,
Come on, man.
Guess what this terrible category was.
Is it shoot 3-pointers? Because they think we had something where we had to pick the number of 3-pointers.
We're getting to that, but it's not as egregious.
Oh, it's not even that.
It's not as egregious. Sorry. This category, our guessing on this is more egregiously wrong than we were on guessing shoots number of games with 3-pointers.
Is this Grandison's 3-point percentage?
Yeah, it's Jacob Grandison's 3-point shooting percentage. And I don't want to dwell on it because it stinks, right? We knew that coming into the season he was supposed to be a sharpshooter. He had averaged 41% from three in his previous.
That's what I guessed. I remember
seasons.
I guessed like 41 or 42.
Yeah, you guessed 42.2. Donald was the closest here because he guessed 37.3 and the real number was 33.7.
I want to argue that Donald should not get that point.
I think I can get on board with that because
no. He gets the point.
I think in the spirit of the thing, none of us deserve a point for this because none of us came in with the spirit of, I don't think Jacob Grandison's actually going to be that good of a 3-point shooter, and it turns out he wasn't. So,
wait, Donald, I'll go with whatever you say. Do you want the point or not?
Do you think you deserve it?
I mean, so that's a loaded question.
I should have revealed in the other order, but
yeah,
now
a lot of people don't get what they deserve, right? Like some people don't deserve, they still get it. I think I should get the point because in some of the other categories, if someone was a little higher but still within the realm, they would get it. And you can argue whether 33% is within the realm, but it's not like he shot 30%.
I actually don't think you can argue whether it's in the realm.
No, I'm in favor. Donald gets the point.
Fine. I've given Donald the point. I've been overruled here, gentlemen, and also I'm feeling good because I win the next category, which is how many times is Jaden Schutt going to score 3-pointers in a game?
Oh my god!
Because I guessed one.
The answer is zero.
No, it was one. He did do it once. Sorry, this was against Eastern Shore. I can't remember when Jalen Blakes led the team in scoring. I didn't take this note. But Jaden Schutt did have 3-pointers against Maryland Eastern Shore. So,
okay, all right. Okay.
Donald guessed twice, and Jason guessed 3 times. So, Jason, you can bask in your own stink on this one. This is a tough category, guys. We did a bad job this year. This is hard. Hey, it turns out
this may have been the most difficult team to project. I mean, we had one player with any experience coming back, and we thought he was going to play a different role than he played last year.
Yeah, so just all over the place. Anyway, coming on to another category that you all should be really embarrassed about. It's Donald's favorite category. It's 100-point games. Jason thought that Duke would score 100 points twice this season. Donald guessed once. I said 0, and I should get 2 points for this because Duke didn't. I think Duke had.
Did we get 90? I'm not sure if we got 90.
We broke 90
it might have been in an overtime game. I'm checking now.
I think we broke 90 early in the season.
Sorry, Duke did score 90 points twice this season. Once against Delaware, and once you may recall against Pittsburgh in the ACC tournament, a week and a half ago. Duke had 96 in that one, so we got real close to Donald winning this category. So maybe I don't deserve 2 points for this, but. I told you this team was not going to be good. Not good, but not great on offense. And here we go.
But by the way, had we not, as I recall, the walk-ons played like almost 5 minutes in that game. We should have gotten to 100 in that game. There's little question.
Yeah, we were in both of those.
We were like at 90. We were like at 94 with like 7 minutes left in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Duke finished the season 40th, or at least as of right now, Duke is 40th in KenPom in adjusted offensive efficiency. I think that's the worst that it's been in the entire KenPom era because every Mike Krzyzewski team just shot a lot of threes and was really good at that. And on top of that, Duke also played slow this year, which we did not, I don't think, predict as being.
We thought we'd go fast. Yeah.
Duke. We thought Duke would run this year because lots of athletes on the team, but that didn't happen either. So anyway, I win 100-point games. Good for me. Total points for the walk-ons, Jason's favorite category, because every year Jason just takes whatever our guess is and guesses 1 point less because he knows that he guessed 4, I guessed 5, Donald guessed 7. Jason wins the category because do you know how many points the walk-on scored this year?
I'm going to go with 2.
It was 0. There were no points scored by the walk-ons this season. So better luck next year, fellas, because you went over this. It was a tough year for the walk-ons.
Wait, we're recounting. We weren't counting Christian Reeves in that, right?
No, Christian Reeves is a recruited player.
Got it. Yeah.
And we were also not counting Cale Catchings or Max Johns.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So it was just Spencer Hubbard
and Stanley Borden.
Yeah.
Now, or is it Stanley Hubbard and Spencer Borden?
Nope.
Didn't we confuse that once?
I think we did.
I don't know.
I think you just did.
Did. By the way, Sam, I looked. 2007, Duke was 44th in KenPom in offense. That's
a great year.
That tracks.
A fine wine.
a fine wine where Josh McRoberts is bricking threes. That's a tough year to compare to. You hate to see it. Players that log over 300 minutes. Jason and I are splitting this category. The answer was 9, and there was actually a pretty clear delineation. Jalen Blake's very comfortably cleared this bar. You could say that Duke had an 8.5-man rotation this year with Blake's as the half, and Jaden Schutt was next, and he wasn't anywhere close to 300. So I don't know if anyone has commentary about this one. It didn't end up actually being that interesting.
What did I guess? Did I guess 8?
Donald guessed 8.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Here's one that Donald is going to take, and which the notes for which I wrote, oof. What is Duke's defensive rank on the day of Selection Sunday? I said that Duke was going to be 5th in the nation in KenPom defense. Jason said 6th. Donald said 9th. So Donald's going to take it because he guessed the worst number, and I think he did that intentionally because Jason and I were like, no, Duke will be very good at defense this year. And Donald was like, I mean, maybe. We have no idea.
We're saying 9th, like 9th is terrible. I mean,
it's not, right?
It's not.
But Duke,
I was like,
Duke was in the 20s. In KenPom and ended the season, or at least ended the season. As of today, Duke is 18th in KenPom in defense. I maintain that defense was still the strength of this team, and late in the year that number was climbing up basically every game.
Yeah, and I could go look it up on Bart Torvik. I think Duke was like in our final 10 games, not including the Tennessee game. we were top 10 in defense.
So there you have it. Road wins. I'm gonna gloat on this one because when we get to we're getting to all the wins categories. I'm gonna remind everyone that Jason and Donald thought that this Duke team would be like amazing, and it turns out they were good. They were not vintage Duke, I would say. So I guess that Duke would win 5 games on the road. Jason and Donald both guessed 7, and I'm taking the point because Duke only won 4 games on the road this year. And all the wins just came at home.
Next year we should do home wins or home losses.
Ooh, no, that'll be a more interesting category and one that's really devastating to think about.
Yeah, I'm not picking losses. We'll pick wins. Home wins is a good one.
That's a tough one. You want to know? You want to know what else is tough? Do you know how many ACC teams made the NCAA tournament this year?
5.
Only 5. Do you know what we guessed?
8. Did I say 8?
I guess 6.
No, Donald and I both guessed 6. Jason said 7. So Donald and I are both getting points for this one. But this is the lowest. When I was looking this one up earlier, this is the lowest number. This is the lowest number of ACC teams to make the tournament since the ACC expanded to 15 teams.
Yo, Clemson was robbed. Clemson was robbed.
Look, Jason, you have UNC to thank for that because who would have thought that UNC would have a historic collapse? I mean, they are the first preseason.
Carolina did end up
the tournament.
They did end up as like one of the first 4 out.
So did Clemson, yeah.
Despite all that we talked about, how Carolina is definitely not making the tournament. The committee almost put them in and like sent them to Dayton. So
right,
I don't know. Food for thought. Carolina almost made the tournament, and then they didn't even make the NIT. I think that's the story, right?
They didn't
make the NIT.
No, they turned it down.
No, but
that's what they said.
But actually, they didn't make it, right? Just to humor me.
Oh yes, they didn't make it.
Of course,
if you would like to believe that,
I'm in for that. Of all the conspiracies that I choose to believe in, that's the most benign, and I won't share any of the other ones on this program. The next category I didn't end up counting, but I'm pretty sure I know who won this. We guessed 10-5-5 games. It's our favorite new category. I guessed 12. Donald guessed 10. Jason guessed 9. There's no way that Duke had 9 this season. I think there were like 4 or 5 of them. So
Yeah.
I'm giving this one to Jason because I think it took until like sometime in February for Duke to tally their first 10-5-5 game. And then there weren't that many.
Then we had like 3 in like 2 games. I think we had 3 in 4 games.
We should have guessed weird, awesome Derek Lively stat line games. That, it turns out, would have been more fun.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Total wins for Duke this season. I told you that I was not as high on the Blue Devils as you two were. So they won 27 games. I guessed 28 and giving myself a point for that. Donald guessed 32. Jason guessed 30. Not super high, but you were all pretty hot on that.
Unfortunately, I mean, I was thinking, big. If they had won the national championship, they would have ended with exactly 32 wins.
What do you want for that? They lost in the second.
I just want you to know that I was aiming high, man. I was aiming for the title.
That's awesome, Donald. I'm so happy for you. In conclusion, do you guys need to know what the final scores are here? I don't know if any of you keep track.
I haven't been tracking it now.
So
I don't count.
So in last place, Donald won 6 points.
Okay.
Tough year for your boy. I'll skip second place because once you know second place, you know first place. First place was Jason Evans, 9 points this year.
Yes!
What a comeback. What a horrible, disgusting performance that still gets you the trophy. What would this be? What is this like? Is this like UConn winning the NCAA tournament as a 7 seed? Like, is that what Jason is now?
Look, dude, you still hang the banner. That's all that matters, baby.
Until
NIT,
we find NCAA violations.
I'm going to hang my NIT third place banner like they did in Chapel Hill.
Wow. Could you put that in your Zoom background? That would be great.
Yeah, I'm just going to put it right here.
Anyway, congratulations to Jason. We'll see you all next year. We're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we need to talk about the unfortunate end of the road for Duke women's basketball from this season. Stay tuned. We are back, and we unfortunately need to send you a quick update about the fact that Duke women's basketball, which had achieved a number 3 seed in this NCAA tournament, unfortunately failed to go any farther than the men's team did. They lost in the second round, as I mentioned early in the show, to University of Colorado. It was an overtime loss, a heartbreaking overtime loss, and the worst part is that it happened in Cameron Indoor Stadium. Donald, I know you were checked in on this one. What happened to Duke down the stretch?
It's weird, right? They just couldn't make any shots when push comes to shove. And I'm going to let you know something. We had one of the greatest performances in the history of either tournament in this game in Celeste Taylor. She had 8 points, 10 rebounds, 10 steals, and 8 assists. She was 2 points and 2 assists shy of a quadruple double. First player in NCAA.
Yeah. Donald, by the way, if you watch this game, the number of times her teammates fumbled away passes that she gave to them under the basket that should have been assists, there's no question she should have had a triple-double. And God, if she just found one more layup, one more basket, a quadruple-double, it would have been truly legendary.
First, I believe, I don't know if it's for the men, but I know for the women for sure. It's the first time anyone in the NCAA tournament for the women has had that stat line, which is incredible. But it's weird, right? The shooting was just off. They were turning the ball over. They had 22 turnovers, I want to say. But again, you know, this is an overtime game, but that's a lot of turnovers. Every single time it felt like they needed a basket late. They couldn't get one or they turned the ball over. And it's just, you know, those kind of frustrating mistakes that make it a little more heartbreaking. I will say, Jason, before this, I told you that I had a stat for everybody. It is the first time that all of the triangle teams, we look at the entire triangle, Duke, UNC, and NC State, that both the men and women for each of those teams are out of the tournament in the first weekend. First time that's happened since 1996. It's only happened 4 times ever. This year, 1996, 1979, and 1976. That's just, it just feels like a gut punch because this was a team that I thought was going to be able to make it maybe to the Elite Eight and challenge people to get to the Final Four. And it's just absolutely heart-wrenching that it ends, like you said, Sam, in Cameron on the first weekend.
Jason, what else did you see from the Blue Devils at the end here that was so frustrating as they lost this overtime contest?
They had to come from behind, and they did that really well in the third quarter. They were down at halftime, and it looked kind of grim, and they were great in the third quarter, but I think they expended a ton of energy in getting back in the game and even getting to a little bit of a lead, and then they just couldn't quite hold on to that lead in the fourth quarter. There were a couple moments where I was like, they're going to win this one more bucket. They're going to win this one more bucket. And they just could never get that one more bucket. They only shot 21% from three. They just kept on taking 3-pointers and missing them. And it's not like they were much better from two. They weren't much better from two, to be honest. It was, it was frustrating to watch because this is a team that was so great at one end of the floor and struggled so much at the other end of the floor. That said, I'm sure that Kara Lawson is not blind. I know that she is very aware that Duke, had those terrible struggles all season long on offense. And my bet is she is going to be working the portal. She's already doing some good stuff, really good stuff in recruiting. And I think that she'll fix it. And this program's arrow is pointed up, up, up.
I mean, I will say this, she recruited a ton of players out of the portal last year. Celeste Taylor came over from Texas. I believe Elizabeth Balogun came over. She had, I think, maybe 5 or 6 that she got from the transfer portal to couple with the recruiting that she had come in. She has a hell of a recruiting class coming in this next year, led by Jade Donovan, who is one of the finalists, I believe, for USA Today, Women's Player of the Year, Gatorade Women's Player of the Year.
Yeah, highest ranked Duke women's recruit in many, many years.
Yeah, and so this is just the beginning, and Celeste Taylor has at least 1 year left. I'm not sure if she's used her COVID year, but she is a
it would be her. So it would be her COVID year. She's played 4 years, and you don't see women taking the COVID year as much as you do with the men. Most of the women, they get their 4 years done, they graduate, and a lot of them tend to move on, whether it's moving on to pro basketball or not. It would be so great. Celeste Taylor could come back. I don't think anyone knows for sure what she's going to do. Boy, if she comes back, she is a really special player, and she would be in contention for All-American.
All the awards.
For sure.
All the awards, yeah. But this just goes to show that the future was bright here at Cameron Indoor Stadium, both for the men and for the women. And, Kara Lawson, friend of the podcast, like, she is doing work and it's not going to stop here. So I'm extremely proud. I think the fact that we are all, agreed that this was such a heartbreaking loss means how highly we thought of this team and how far they could go, and that they had the players that could make that happen, and it just didn't happen for them. So I'm looking forward to to seeing what they do in the offseason, but this is going to be a much stronger team with a chip on his shoulder next year. And I'm really looking forward to watching them in 2023-24.
This team, they lost to UConn fairly early in the season, and then they went on an 11-game win streak, and they were, at times, they were just dominant in the ACC, and they arrived faster than people expected them to arrive. A lot of people figured, Kara Lawson's going to turn this program around at some point. It happened a lot quicker than people really thought it would. And like we've said repeatedly, this collection, this team outperformed expectations, and everyone in the business expects that will continue to happen, and that they will continue to be, perennially ranked and at the top of the ACC.
So with that, let me do a couple housekeeping notes before we wrap up. First of all, we are going to be back sometime soon to talk about the whole soup of NBA draft decisions that are going to happen for the Blue Devils. This has got to be the year of all the years we've done this show where we have so little idea about what everybody is doing, because you could kind of convince me on almost every player on this team deciding either to leave or to stay. So we have to run that down. If you are on the DBR forums do not allow you to make baseless speculation about what players are going to do. But you know where you can do that? DBR Podcast at gmail.com. Innuendo, rumors, stuff you heard from AAU coaches, all of that is on the table. You can email that to us, and we love to hear it. So email all those things to us. I feel like we have a little bit more season recap to do because I need to do a little bit more on like how much I appreciate what Jon Scheyer did this season, which we didn't really get to today because that doesn't really get covered in the stats game. We didn't like guess how many times Jon Scheyer would get called for a technical. He didn't. So maybe we have to add that next year. Jason, did you have any other logistics for the people?
No. I was just going to say that if folks do email us with their speculation, their tips, whatever else it may be, whatever is said to dbrpodcast@gmail.com stays with dbrpodcast@gmail.com. So don't worry about us spoiling things at all or spilling the beans, so to speak, when we come back in just a couple days and talk about NBA draft and transfer portal and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah, because we have to do a ton of that because every year it feels like we just end up talking about it more and more and more because all of these decisions end up staying fluid. So I think that's it. We may touch on the NCAA tournament again if we decide collectively to turn it back on, but that is for us to decide and for you all to find out, unfortunately. So with that, are we good? I think so. Congratulations to Jason for his victory this year in the stats game. Jason, I might get you a trophy at some point and I might not. Don't hold.
Who won last year?
I did.
Who won the year before? I did.
I think Jason did. Jason, here, I'll make you a deal.
Yeah.
Jason, if you finish Return to Glory, I'll get you a trophy.
Oh, you're the worst, man. Yes. Now the pressure's on. Now I have to do it.
You got to do it now, and then I'll buy you a trophy. Is that a deal?
I got two episodes in the can. They're already done.
Oh, yeah. Do you?
Yeah, I just got to finish up. I think there are two more that I have to finish up.
Yeah, what can? Show us. Show us the can.
You won't play. I can play it for you right now, baby. I can do
it. Shout out to Shane Battier, Jason Williams, Carlos Boozer, Mike Dunleavy, Chris Duhan, the rest of the homies.
Simpson.
Matt Christensen, Nick Horvath,
all those guys.
Dante
Reggie
Jones.
Love.
They're all on it. They're all
Shout
there.
out to associate head coach Johnny Dawkins for the 2001 national championship. And shout out to Gilbert Arenas, who I make fun of from time to time on this program. We've gone longer than I wanted us to today. Thanks so much for joining us. dbrpodcast@gmail.com. Congratulations to Jason. This has been episode 504 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Duke Band, take us home.